Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the qualifying session for the fourth round of the 2014 Blancpain Sprint Series here at the Slovakia Ring. My name is Jack Nichols. Alongside me here in the commentary box is John Watson. Got cars going out there onto the circuit. There is the Lamborghini heading out onto the track, and we are, as I say, at the fourth round of the championship. We've been to Nogaro in France, Brands Hatch in the UK, Zandvoort in the Netherlands a couple of weeks ago, and now we're here, John, at an entertaining circuit. It's good fun to drive this. Yeah,
I mean, it's a wonderful racetrack, 14 corners, very wide there. You see the main start-finish straight. It's probably as wide as any racetrack anywhere in the world. And a combination of high-speed corners, tight hairpins down, for example, down into turn 3, and then further around the racetrack, ups and downs, and there is a view of the internal part of the circuit. So for everybody here, it's a challenge, engineers and for drivers.
20.4 degrees the air temperature, track temperature at 31.7, so reasonably warm considering it's only 10 o'clock in the morning.
It's warm in the sun, but in the shade is actually quite cool. So right now on the racetrack, getting the full benefit of this early morning sun here in Slovakia, just outside the city of Bratislava. So everybody makes their way out onto the track, having been out yesterday in 2 sessions. Funnily enough, maybe not so funnily enough, the morning session was the quicker of the two, and it was the Stefano Telli Humprecht Audi that was quickest, 158.7. That was about, the session started at 9:30 in the morning. The second session, free practice session 2, began at 2:30 in the afternoon. Much warmer ambient temperatures, well, 4 degrees Celsius, 4 Celsius in fact, as it turned out, 159.9. So a combination of tire wear and track temperature saw that drop off of 1.2 seconds.
So you can see the cars now starting the first of their flying laps. The way this qualifying session works is that we have 2 15-minute sessions, and then the 10 quickest cars combined from those 2 sessions go through to the final pole position shootout. And we're watching the first man out there, Miguel Toril, the Spaniard, driving his Fortec Mercedes, coming through turn 2 now, which is a very quick corner. We saw Albert von Turner Taxis have a big off there a couple of years ago, but now you'll notice there's no chicane here. If you've been watching in the last couple of years, that's because they've leveled off essentially this jump here, so the cars no longer get airborne. They still get a bit light and loose over it, but we don't have the little tire chicane.
Most sensible thing that has been done here at the Slovakia Ring since we've been coming here for GT events, and again, just watching the car under braking these internal corners into this long, never-ending turn 6. But the fact that now out of turn 2, no chicane, and a chance, a clear overtaking over opportunity, more so than in the previous years with the chicane, down into turn 3. And that's going to be, I think, a very exciting part of the racetrack.
Absolutely, you can see the Al Inkel car behind running a little bit wide. Superb to have alinkel.com, Munich Motorsports back in the Blancpain Sprint Series. Technically they've never been in the Blancpain Sprint Series, but they were the GT1 World Champions back in 2012, and they've got just one driver in that car, René Munich, who's the boss of Munich Motorsports. He's piloting that car, and it's going to be very interesting to see him out there as we watch the other SLS of Miguel Toril still. He's done personal best so far. The fastest lap time we've seen so far this weekend, a 1 minute 58.7. So that's, to get you into the top 10, you'll probably have to be doing somewhere in that region. But through the final corner comes Toril, and let's see what sort of lap time he can do. He's going to be well in the 2 minutes here for the Fortec car, a 2 minute 2.373. René Munich comes through behind to do a 2 minute 3.345. So we haven't seen any of our big guns, as it were, setting a lap time just yet.
No, and I think as drivers just get back onto track, there have been other events taking part or practicing this morning, so it's just a question of you go out, you do a couple of laps, you get a feel for the racetrack. You can't afford to sit around too much because the clock is ticking away. We're just coming up to the 10-minute mark to go. So those drivers who feel that they know what they need to do to move forward in terms of who's going to be quickest in this first 10 and 15-minute session, we're looking at a sub 2-minute lap in this first of the 3 qualifying sessions.
Alex Zanardi is back with us this weekend as well in the number 33 car. He missed Zandvoort because he was competing in a handbike race as he continues to focus on Rio 2016 after picking up a couple of gold medals at London 2012. But he is now back behind the car, and he was saying yesterday, and I think that's interesting there's now some tarmac runoff on the exit of turn 8, which I think we might see the drivers using an awful lot of. But we'll keep an eye on that one. But Zanardi saying it's great to get back behind the car because he hasn't driven it since Brands Hatch, which was back in May, I think.
Yeah,
so he's been missing it.
Yes, and he's been focusing on the other events that combine to make his life a very full life indeed. But back behind the wheel of a racing car, Alex Zanardi, I think, is going to relish racing here. Slovakia ring, it's got the kind of corners where, let's say, his facilities within the car, because he operates the brake, the throttle, gear change, as well as steering from the steering wheel. And you've got a chance to breathe, and some of these quicker corners you can prepare the car without the panic of having to do a number of facilities in the process of slowing it down.
Mark Basseng still the quickest man at the moment in the Phoenix Audi, a 2 minutes dead .358, and that is just a tenth of a second or so faster than Fabian Hamprecht, who's joined Stefan Ortelli, and they're in the pro class, so that's 4 WRTs in the pro class, with obviously the Silver Cup car of Vincent Abril and Matej Sosowski still out there. There's the 84 Mercedes coming around the final corner. Nico Verdonk at the wheel, he's replacing Max Buch at the wheel of the championship leading Audi this weekend. Here he comes towards the line. Is it going to be a good lap time from him? It puts him 7th quickest at the moment, but only 4/10 of a second separate the top 8 cars, which is very impressive.
Well, a slight change. Vincent Abril, the 2 young drivers, that's in fact just been taken
by Harry
Project, indeed,
as we're speaking.
And again, just watching the way the car's running out and coming out of turn 2, using the exit curb. Again, we saw that previous years, but now this clear run over the top of the bridge and then into braking probably makes about 10-20 kilometers per hour quicker approach into turn 2 than they were previously done.
There is Mark Basseng still out there on the circuit in the number 5 Pro-Am Audi, in the car he shares with Anglo-Italian Alessandro Latif. Looks as though car 76 has been off and back at turn 2, so that is the Schubert BMW, currently in the hands of Thomas Jaeger. He's had a bit of a moment on the exit of 2. There you can see what I'm talking about with running wide out of turn 8. They've concreted all of that, and that means it's possible to run nice and wide out there. Basseng's gone fastest of anyone in the first sector. You can see at 36.513 as he drops down the hill, throws it into the left-hander.
Yeah, we're saying this is actually a very good showing from Basseng. We've not seen such a great performance from this combination of the Audi and Basseng throughout the season. It's maybe been somewhat of a surprise, maybe of a disappointment, certainly to Mark Basseng, that he hasn't delivered more from a car that clearly is a winning car.
Down towards the final corner he comes, and he's got his old team boss René Munich up in front of him. And still team boss, they do still race a little bit with Munich Motorsports in things like the Dubai 24 Hours, but here comes Basseng. He's a fraction up at the moment on Harry Projic's time. Will he go to the top of the timing screens? Across the line he comes now, and no, he doesn't. He's lost a reasonable amount of time in that final sector. Looked very lively underneath him, the Audi, as Alex Zanardi remains in the pits, but it's Harry Projik quickest at the moment, 2nd for Vincent Abril, 3rd for Mark Basseng, 4th for Fabian Hamprecht, 5th for Alex Zanardi, 6th Nico Verdonk, 7th Stefan Racina, 8th Philippe Salaquada, 9th Vicky Melhoff, and 10th at the moment is Lucas Wolf in the 3rd HDP Mercedes that has been entered for Lucas Wolf and Lucas Stoltz.
We're still to see, you might say, the 2 big guns waiting to come out of the track. That's car number 1, Audi Belgium Club WRT, Laurens van Voor, and the number 2 car, René Rast. And there's going to be those 2 drivers that are going to be ultimately battling. But just over 5.5 minutes of the session remaining. They need to sort of think about getting on track now. Still no indication from the pit lane that they have left the pit lane. So it's going to be out, literally a lap out, flying lap, and a checkered flag.
So there's still that yellow flag out in sector 2. So I wonder if that is scuppering people's attempts at the moment. Not quite sure where it is, but well, we just as I say that, it goes green at the top and all the sectors are now clear. So there we go, that's not going to affect anyone from now on. So here coming down towards us is the Valour Corsa Ferrari, number 90, which currently has Philippe Salaquada at the wheel and is 8th quickest at the moment in the car that he shares with Andrea Montemini, who's returning because he missed Zandvoort, didn't he, Montemini? So it's good to have him back as well. Across the line, any improvement? No, a slow lap time, that 2:05.
The Laurens van Voor car has gone out. It's done a flying lap, but it's currently in the hands of Cesar Ramos. 11th place, 2:08.25. And you're looking down, in fact, the top 12 cars covered by 0.8 of a second. Now, that's a big gap, isn't it?
especially on a circuit that's almost 2 minutes long. Very, very tight stuff in the Blancpain Sprint Series. We've got the main race coming up later on today. As into the final corner comes Vincent Abril, currently second quickest. Stefano Colombo jumps up to fifth quickest with the quickest middle sector of anyone. But we are watching Vincent Abril come into the pits now by the looks of things. So he pulls into the pit lane and hits the speed limit line, and it comes past our commentary box as we look at Enzo Eid out there on track. Where is he? This is his out lap, I think. Oh no, this might be his first flying lap actually. He's done a 37.8 in the first sector, a 59.7 in the middle sector, so not too bad so far from Enzo Eid. This could move him up towards the top 10. Through the final kink he comes, and across the line, and he goes 17th.
17th, well, I mean, it's his first flying lap, and he's got 3.5 minutes now to go. He'll get 2 this lap and 1 more lap before the checkered flag comes out to conclude this first of these 3 sessions. So the young Belgian driver, Ferrari fan, he's got a collection of Ferraris. Very upset, he said he didn't get a La Ferrari. You know, how tough is your life when you can't get a La Ferrari?
He's got an Enzo though, hasn't he? Enzo.
He's got about everything else.
He's got Enzo's Enzo. There you can see Harry Project. His work is done here. Has a little word with Jeroen Bleekemolen, the man with his back towards us, or the man with Jeroen written on his overalls. That'll help you spot him. And, there he will be the man going out in the second segment of qualifying in a few moments' time. Here's Caca Bueno, multiple Brazilian stock car champion, out there on the circuit now. And we have had all our cars go out onto the track. Sasha Halleck has been out and not set a fast lap, and we're still waiting for the first fast lap from this man, Caca Bueno. The Brazilians getting their act together, really. In Blancpain Sprint, they had a challenging year last year, but a podium already so far this season as we go on board now, John.
Yes, Nick, this is over the bridge, dropping down into turn 10, which is the tight left-hander, then followed very quickly. Position really here is key, and what you're saying from Caca Bueno is just about ideal. So then the sprint, again, over one of the, effectively a bridge, then the drop down, probably the second quickest part of the circuit on the run down into the final 2 turns. 13 really, which is more about setting the car up. You do take an apex, as you see, and then you get into the final part. What he's doing is just hugging the whole way around. He's not actually going out and coming back in again, and then comes across final turn 14 onto the start finish line. So let's see where Caca Bueno finishes up.
16th.
Yeah, it's sort of hard to understand some of the performances in this session relative to what they were doing yesterday.
But that's only 1.1 seconds slower than Harry Project up at the top, and that was his first flying lap. So let's see what he has on flying lap number 2, because Stefano Colombo went quicker on his second lap and is, as a result, second quickest in the Silver Cup Royal Motorsport BMW. And is this him now coming through the right-hander? No, this is Zanardi, currently 7th quickest at the moment. This is his out lap, I believe, or it might be his first flying lap. We'll see when he comes through the first sector, down towards the hairpin of turn 3. No, he's out there on a flying lap now, and he's done a personal best in the first sector, 36.826. Lucas Wolf set the fastest first sector of anyone, a 36.439, but he remains 5th quickest overall in that third HTP Motorsport Mercedes, 84, 85 and 86. Black, red and blue, the 3 colours and numbers for the HTP cars that we'll be seeing out this weekend. Just 40 seconds of the session remaining.
Just watch Zanardi. He will, if there's a bit of racetrack on the outside, he will use it, because that's the nature of Alex Zanardi in a racing car. Always maxes out on the racetrack. The interesting thing is the exit of 8 being that little bit quicker puts slightly different dynamic on into turn 9, because you can pick up maybe 2 or 3 miles an hour, maybe a couple of kilometers per hour. Then the drop down into the very tight left-hand turn 10. Then immediately you switch back, hugging the curb, in fact using every bit of the runoff and the curbing on the inside on the exit as well. Again, over the tunnel, and then drop down following the Brazilian BMW with 1 second of the session remaining, so both cars will take the flag. In fact, the BMW, the Brazil car, probably will go straight into the pit lane, whereas Zanardi will continue to complete this lap. So car 33, Alex Zanardi, currently 7th quickest, 2 minutes 04.466, and he will look to improve. Remember, Zanardi drives on his own, so he will stay in that car for the second session, and then if he doesn't get into the top 10, his morning is over.
Yep, he remains 7th quickest, and set the lap time just 100th of a second slower than his personal best. So consistency from Zanardi, but there's Stefano Colombo climbing out of his BMW. A really impressive performance from the Italian. And he is now handed over to Fuminelli. Here is the 85 car out there of Sergei Afanasiev, down in 16th spot at the moment. He's been through the first sector and has set a 36.6, which is a reasonable first sector split. 59.6 in the middle sector, which isn't quite as strong. So we'll see what Afanasiev can do as he comes through. I suppose it's the penultimate corner, really, because you then just have this sort of meaningless left-hand kink.
Yeah, all the kink is just preparing you to get onto the start-finish straight. And no change, 2:01.049 for the Russian in the Mercedes. So Steph Dusseldorf will step into that car in a moment or two, and we'll see whether Steph has got the pace in the SLS Mercedes-Benz that Afanasiev didn't appear to have this morning.
But that lap time from Afanasiev means that the top 16 cars in that session covered by less than a second. That is very close, actually.
Well, I don't know. I don't think you have to exaggerate these things, Jack. I mean, second covering 16 cars. What can you do?
Car 84 reported to the stewards for cutting the white line at pit entry, and that is Nico Verdonk. And also car 61's under investigation for pit lane infringements. That is the Bitec car of Sten Pentus and Chris Vanderdrift, who's making his Blancpain sprint debut. He's never been to the Slovakia ring here before.
Interesting, Chris Vanderdrift, a single-seater race driver who's now lost any real opportunities to continue that direction of motorsport, but ought to make a significant impact in GT racing, brings with him all the natural speed. Still can never forget that horrible accident he had some years ago at Brands Hatch. And I'm sure he doesn't need reminding of it. It must be the worst nightmare of a racing driver.
Yeah, a terrible accident there for Chris Vanderdrift, but he's back and healthy now and out racing cars once again, which is great to see. There's the Pro-Am Grasser Racing car, Sasha Halleck and Stefan Landman. Halleck did the first session. Landman will go out in the second segment of this qualifying session. As there we can see the 28 car. Jeroen Bleekemolen now strapped in, and he's never been to this circuit before, but let's have a look at the results then. And it was quickest of anyone for the 28 car, Harry Procek and Jeroen Bleekemolen. It was Procek who set the lap time of 2-minute dead .104, considerably slower than the lap times we've seen so far this weekend. Colombo and Fuminelli second quickest, Vincent Abril third quickest in the WRT Audi, Marc Basseng there fourth quickest in the Phoenix Audi, so they're looking strong. Then we got the first of the Mercedes in 5th place for Lucas Wolff, the first of the HTP cars. Alex Zanardi on his return to the series is currently 7th quickest. 8th position for Nico Verdonk in his Blancpain Sprint Series debut. And then further back down the order, you'll see we've got 20 cars out this weekend. There's the first of the Bitec cars with Chris Vanderdrift in 13th place. Matthias Stumpf and Valdena Brito are there in 14th spot. So the BMW is not running particularly strong in that session, but only 0.6 of a second off, and you're down in 14th position. René Munich in 19th place, and Enzo Eid only managing 20th position, which I think could be a little bit disappointed with, considering they won the last race in Sandport.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether Enzo Eid had an issue or a problem, or really he was just going through the motions because he's going to hand the car over to his teammate René Rast, and it's no discredit to Enzo Eid that match to René Rast, who has been absolutely scintillating in his WRT Audi, both at Zandvoort and of course winning Spa 24 in the Blancpain Enduro. I mean, I probably have not seen as fine a drive in a GT car as I saw at the last couple of hours in Spa from René Rast. He was just poetry behind the wheel.
Superb, wasn't he? And when he came to that final pit stop and Marcus Winkelhock was there waiting to get in, and Rast just sort of stayed strapped in, said, no, I'm doing this. And then he was shattered at the end, wasn't he, when you interviewed him in the...
Well, understandably. I mean, it was a tough event, but he did it was just the way he positioned the car at every single corner around the racetrack, and in particular up or through Eau Rouge, over the top at Radio. The car was precise every lap, same place. Some people struggled with that part of the racetrack over the 24 hours. Others managed it, and nobody did it better than René Rast.
Stenpentus will be the first man to leave the pit lane then in the green Bitec McLaren. Very kind of them for Zandvoort, I think it was, to change the liveries around a little bit, so it was a little easier to tell the difference between the two of them. And there's the two Brazilian BMW cars, Sergio Jimenez and Valdena Brito will be taking part in this second session for them. They can see Stenpentus queued up, then the two Grassa Racing Lamborghinis, and then Rene Munich getting ready to go out again for his second crack at it. And the session is due to get underway at 10:22, and thanks to that handy big clock, you can see that's less than a minute away as they stick some new slicks, presumably, on the car of Marcus Winkelhock, who again, Spa 24 winner. And he and the Phoenix team will be looking to get back on track a little bit, because they have struggled compared to WRT here in the Blancpain Sprint Series.
Yes, but also remember there's a slightly different driver lineup in the Sprint Series as to the Enduro Series, and that takes a little bit of time to reconnect with a different co-driver. But Marcus Winkelhock, again, consistent, quick, won Nürburgring 24 in that Phoenix Audi, so it's a quick car, quick pairing. But just you've got to reintegrate with your co-driver. Cars I'm interested to see really this weekend are the two Lamborghinis from the rival teams, the Grassa Racing car of Harry Project and Jerome Bleekemolen, and the Reiter Engineering of Stefan Rosina and Thomas Enger, both potential race-winning cars, both from different teams, and maybe that's putting a bit of pressure. The Grassa team, a much smaller operation than Reiter Engineering, putting a bit of pressure on the Reiter Engineering car, who in turn are going to keep what we believe will be probably a strong Audi showing here, keep them honest.
And Reiter Engineering, of course, essentially supply the cars to the Grassa Racing team. They are the sort of Lamborghini race car builders, Reiter, so it's been interesting to see that dynamic play out throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages that Grassa are enjoying is actually the inclusion of Jerome Bleekemolen into the team, who brings a huge amount of GT experience, apart from being a naturally quick race driver, a quick qualifier. And Harry Project has suddenly blossomed and really developed very, very quickly indeed, which is in part, I think, because of the partnership he has with the Dutchman Jerome Bleekemolen.
There's the 9 car, which is switched allegiances from G Drive to WRT. Roman Rusinov not here, but a 4th WRT car now in the hands of Fabian Hamprecht and Stefan Ortelli, and they looked very quick in the free practice session. So with Ortelli now behind the wheel, there is a reasonable chance we could see them moving towards the top of the field. It'll be the top 10 in total from the 2 sessions combined that will go through to the next session. So our quickest lap time was a 2-minute dead 1:04. We've got 1:62 and 1:81. So that's the sort of region these guys need to be in. Is if you get under, basically you need to get into the 1 minutes, and then you'll be looking good.
So has anybody thrown a new set of tyres, a new set of Pirellis at their car to now, because this is the determining qualifying session, to see who makes it into the top 10 shootout? So if you're going to run your fresh tyre, do you gamble in being quick enough on a set of used tyres, or do you throw the new set of tyres on to give you that little bit of advantage in the hope that you will get through into the top 10? As we look at the McLaren, makes it the Bitec car, Chris van der Drift and Stenpentus up over the hill.
The Estonian at the wheel at the moment, the former Formula Baltic champion.
I was in the Baltic recently.
Oh really? Did you race?
No, I didn't. I was on the beach. Well, I was close to the beach. Baltic coast comprises, well, a lot of countries. The country I was in was Germany, what used to be East Germany, not a million miles away from Peenemünde. Do you know what Peenemünde is?
I don't.
Read your history books. It's where the V1 and V2, the Doodlebug, and that's where they were developed. Let's talk about motor racing.
Stenpentus out there on the circuit, and the Estonian, also a Formula 4 champion in his time. Formula Renault 3.5 and other series to boot as well. Very experienced in single-seaters, but now making the transition to GTs. And it's been a tough season so far for Bitec. They've stepped up from the international GT Open where they won championships, but coming to the Blancpain Sprint Series with this level of competition has been a challenge for them. Thomas Enger at the moment is the quickest man in the field in the first sectors so far at 36.389, which is actually the quickest first sector we've seen from anyone in the qualifying session so far this morning. So, and off there, that is Mateusz Lesowski. And where is that? That's most likely to be the sort of turn 9 area. That tends to be where people lose it, but Slovakia, it's difficult to...
difficult to tell. It could be turn 6. Turn 6, turn 7 area, which is that infield, which is the turn 6 is that very, very long.
Yeah,
hard
there
to
it is.
tell,
I think you're right. I think that's on the run into the sort of turn 5, maybe 4, 5 and 6, that sort of region.
That complex, but particularly the entrance to turn 6, it's one of those corners that really does continue on and on and on and on. So that's a disappointment for the car 6, the Pentas car. So it's going to be stuck there unless they can manage, but with only 10.5 minutes remaining, I don't think they're going to see much of that on the circuit anymore.
But now we're getting some proper lap times. Marcus Vingelhock has done a 1 minute 58.770, so he is getting on it.
New tyres, baby.
We're on board with your own Blancpain now as he comes towards this much reduced crest. Let's listen.
Yeah,
it's still a challenge, I think, when you're getting on the brakes coming over the other side.
You're doing 220 kilometers an hour probably. Car does get airborne and you balance that out with the aerodynamics in the car, but in spite of the aerodynamics, just the fact that the speed and the angle of the dip, or the crest I should say, is sufficient to make the car go a little bit airy-fairy, tippy-toey over the top. I mean, you've got to wait until the car's settled before you get on the brakes. Don't try and brake when the car's still in that transitional phase from being a little bit up on the air before it gets back to the ground.
We just saw Lesowski's car there, as you say, on the exit of turn 6, and the car will remain there until the end of the session, so that's disappointment for them. Your own Blancpain, who we're on board with, has just done the fastest first sector of anyone, so things looking good there at 36.249, very, very deep into the left-hander, but that is a line you can take, I suppose.
It is a line you can take when you're on your own and you're just going for that single fast flying lap. If you're in a battle with another car, you might probably come in a little bit earlier and hug the curb all the way around the turn 10 area of the circuit, coming down to this final 2 corners, turn 13, which is this sort of double apex, taking a much more traditional line. You can see, to compare that with what we saw one of the Audis do in the first session, but Blancpain makes it 2 distinct apexes rather than making it one long but very tight. Comes across the line, goes second quickest, 158.9.13 over second, just behind Marcus Winkelhoff.
Yeah, so very close up at the top of the standings then, and so it will be the top 10 from this session that will go through to Q3 essentially.
Interesting to watching Blancpain come through that turn 13 section of the circuit and taking the line that he did, 2 distinct apexes. I actually wonder, is that slightly slower than just hugging the sort of inside of the corner all the way around? Because the danger of running out wide and then cutting back in is that you lose grip mid-corner and then you can't get the front of the car back in. It's a thought for both Blancpain and there is another Audi off. Which one is that?
Stefan Ortelli, I think, in the number 9 Audi, who appears to have made contact with the crash barrier.
Same place?
At the same place.
No, that's very strange. 2 Audis, both same members of the same team, off in turn 6, and not only off, but well off. I mean, that's up against the barrier.
Here we go.
Stefan Ortelli, what have you done?
Well, he's
trying to drive it.
Yeah,
he's
locked into it.
He's locked the brakes. That's why the car's just skidding across the gravel, and that's damage to the left front of that car. And Stefan Ortelli cannot get out because the driver's door is against the barrier.
Yeah,
he's got to undo the belts and all the bits and pieces and try and sort of scramble across to get to the right-hand door.
So 2 WRT cars off at turn 6, Stefan Ortelli and Mateusz Lesowski, and as a result they're going to have to start well down the order.
That would indicate that Audi, the 2 WRT cars, and maybe all 4 of them, are going with a car setup that is a little bit unstable under braking, especially when you're turning. 1 car going off, you can say maybe driver error. 2 cars going off, you have to think there's something consistent there, and I think they're running a car that's probably a little bit light in the rear, under braking, especially into turn 6.
So the problem now is that there will be yellow flags out in the middle sector again. So Jeroen Bleekemolen, who we're on board with, he set the fastest first sector of anyone, but his middle sector is 5 seconds slower than anyone else, so he had to back out of it because he came across that accident in the middle sector. And they're now doing, it looks like they're getting Stefan Landman in the sister car to follow Jeroen Bleekemolen around and try and sort of keep up with his Dutch colleague in front. And maybe that'll improve the time of Stefan Landman, but we'll wait and see what Bleekemolen has, because he's got a clear track now. The yellow flags have been removed from the inside of turn 6. There's Sten Pentus. He is currently 19th. And we've got a few cars just making their way around.
I think they're probably...
Max Goetz.
They may be assuming that the yellow flag still is in situ, but they should have been advised that it has been withdrawn, so the track has gone green with just 5 3/4 minutes of the session remaining. And Marcus Winkelhock's lap, that was one single flying lap, although the car has completed a total of 6 laps and is back into the pits. I don't think anybody is at this stage, unless they have hung back and waited to come out in the final minutes with a fresh set of tires. Nobody's going to challenge that time. And we've gone from top 12 or 14 cars covered by a second. Now it's down to the top 6 covered by a second.
Stefan Ortelli had actually set the second fastest first sector of anyone in that just before he went off. So he was really pushing the Monegasque driver.
Just looking down at the top 6 times, 7th is René Rast on a 59.803. I think that's a time set on a set of tyres, unless he got caught with the yellow flag situation, which is quite conceivable. But that's not representative of what Rast is capable of doing. Although he's inside the top 10, he would want to show, I think, that the speed in the car before he goes into qualifying. You can see a little bit of understeer just being picked up by the front of the car. The sister car to the Bleekemolen car. It is down in... Can't see where it is.
12th place at the moment.
Okay, it is indeed.
And across the line and stays in 12th place. Stefan Landman doesn't improve that time around, so it's still Marcus Winkelhock quickest, 2nd Bleekemolen, 3rd is Laurens Vanthoor, 4th is Thomas Eng, 5th is Max Goetz, 6th is Alex Zanardi, 7th René Rast, Fuminelli, and this man Lucas Stoltz is currently in 9th position. Our first look at the blue Mercedes SLS.
Yes, the blue livery. If that's white on blue as opposed to silver on blue, which would be very much more of the tradition of the colours that Mercedes-Benz have used on team cars. They would always paint a identification colour over the base silver that the cars, well, it's now the German racing colour, silver. It used to be white, but it's now silver. And do you know why it's white?
No.
Because that was the colour they used up until a formula came in 1934, which was a weight-limited formula. So the way they had to get the cars within the formula was a maximum weight. So they took all the paint off the bodywork of the cars of that era in aluminium, and ultimately silver then became, because that's the colour aluminium is, became the national racing colours of Germany.
Non-stop facts all day for you here on the Blancpain Sprint Series coverage. We've learnt about doodlebugs today. We've learnt about, we'll have some fishing later.
Well, it might be like 19-pound salmon. We're going to talk about that.
So car 1 has gone off and back again at turn 3. That is Laurens Vanthoor, so he's pushing hard in the number 1 car, but we're watching Stef Dusseldorp. Personal bests in the first 2 sectors, and pretty reasonable. Well, the middle sector's not great in that HTP machine. At the moment, Dusseldorp is lying in 10th place. Can this push him a little further and a little more comfortable into the top 10, up to 9th, but still he's right on that bubble. It's the top 10 of these cars that will go through to Q3, because they're all now lapping quicker than we saw in the first segment of qualifying.
So Dusseldorp clips the side, but gets the inside wheel just bumping into the curbing and the apex. So we go back to the sister BMW of Zanardi. This is the 34 car.
Fuminelli at the wheel.
In 8th place presently. And Fuminelli is 2 places behind Alex Zanardi. Alex has done a 59.7. And Fuminelli has just beaten him with a 59.3 or 59.5. So the 2 BMW Royal Motorsport cars are in comfortably, I would say, inside the top 10. Good to see.
Yep.
Good to see.
Looks like it for the moment. Dominic Baumann crosses the line and goes 13th quickest. The young Austrian racer. putting in a good lap for the Schubert team, who made their debut in Zandvoort, finished in 2nd place, which was superb for him and Thomas Jaeger. And he now exits and crests the hill once more. Dominic Baumann actually got airborne here last year when he was testing the Grasser racing car at the jump, as it were, before it was altered. And that was quite a scary moment for him. But
yeah, but you don't know, when a car gets airborne, then it's sort of, it's got all sort of potential problems. He slips up the inside, the Audi makes room, sees the BMW coming, does the correct thing. Drivers are required to be observant when they're on a slow lap, and that was a good example of behaviour on the racetrack, not impeding another car on a flying lap. As Dominic Baumann comes through this long, troublesome turn 6. I don't quite fully understand why two of the WRT Audis going off. I suspect that there was a little bit of the setup of the car where there's quite a lot of front end downforce, instability. Then we see the exit of turn 8. That's now been tarmacked and being followed by one of the 2 Brazilian BMWs as well. Doesn't seem to be making a huge amount of difference to how drivers are dealing with turn 9. It's just about flat out in any one of these Group 3 or GT3 GT cars.
So, 20 seconds to go, and at the moment it's Lucas Stoltz, Aman Ibrahim, Stef Dusseldorp. They're the kind of guys who are on the brink of going out. It's the top 10. Oh, and off now has gone Alessandro Latif in the number 5 Phoenix Audi. And is that the same place?
It is.
I think it is, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's almost more than freakish. Whatever Audi are doing with their cars, there's something that turn 6 is catching out the best as well as the rest.
And across the line then comes Baumann. No improvement from him. He remains 13th. Who is there out there that could get up into the top group of cars? Here comes, this is going to be a good lap from Stoltz. He remains in 10th place. It's 7th place for Alex Zanardi still. Valdeno Brito crosses the line. Oh no, he's come into the pits, so he doesn't manage to improve either. And so I think we've got our top 10 pretty much sorted. Here's a look again.
Yeah, this is under brakes and you're sort of turning, and I think what you're finding is the back end of the car is about to, he just hasn't got the confidence to turn the wheel. So I'm assuming that the reason he hasn't got the confidence to turn the wheel is he knows if he turns, the back end's going to get away from him. But on the other hand, if he doesn't turn the wheel, he's going to end up in the gravel, up against the barrier. So whichever way you look at it, it's not a great position to be in.
Rene Munich crosses the line to do a 2-minute 1.782 in the Munich Motorsports Mercedes SLS. The allinkle.com Mercedes SLS. Here comes Stef Dusseldorp. He is through into the top 10. And I think that concludes our runners now. Yep, no one out there will be able to improve. So that means Markus Finkelhock went out, nailed the lap, came back in, job done.
I think one performance that I've sort of been quite impressed by is in fact Aman Ibrahim in the Fortec Mercedes. We've not seen him develop, or have a good run really throughout the season. Here they are, they're just one position outside the top 10. By far the best qualifying performance I think we've seen from that Fortec car all season.
Yep, I'd agree with that. Quicker than Andrea Montemini, quicker than Baumann, who we've seen finish on the podium, quicker than Brito, who we've seen be very quick out there as well. Both the BMWs really struggling though, 14th and 18th place for the 2 Brazilian BMWs. That will be of some concern. There then is Stefan Otelli having a, no, I think that might be Mateusz Lisowski actually, isn't it? Yeah, that's Mateusz Lisowski, my apologies. The driver of, or is it Otelli? Well, who knows? I swear he has a different helmet to that, but maybe he's got a new one for this weekend, and he's right by the 9 car. So
yeah, and he's got
maybe
the
that
car.
is the little Frenchman. Into the pits then.
Yeah, I think didn't he have at one point there's a tribute helmet. We spoke to Stefano Telli at an event and he
Look
was
at all these
extremely
Audis.
emotional. Yeah, no, I mean it is at least it's consistent. And the problem I think is the one that I've been trying to explain is as you come into out of turn 5 into this long, it's a 180-degree turn 6. You're on the left-hand side. The car is on that sort of transitional phase of, have I got any rear end grip? Is it stable under braking? No, it's not really, and I'm sort of trying to balance it on the steering. So I'm assuming we'll try and get hold of Stefano Telli and others and see if they can confirm what our theory is, as to why we've seen three Audis, effectively identical cars, all go off pretty much under identical circumstances.
And we'll find out about his helmet as well. So René Munich comes into the pit lane and slows down, and he will head back to the paddock because he won't be taking part in Q3. But these are the cars that will be going through. The top 10 will be going to the pole position shootout. Markus Winkelhock, the quickest man of anyone, a 1 minute 58.770 for the German, looking very strong for Phoenix Audi. Second place for Jeroen Bleekemolen. The men chasing our championship leaders, the championship leaders themselves, Max Goetz and his teammate for this weekend, Nico Verdonker, down in 5th spot. Stefan Rosina and Thomas Enger, they're in 4th place. So that's looking pretty good for that particular Lamborghini. Alex Zanardi, 7th quickest, out-qualified at the moment by David Fuminelli, and then Rast, Dusseldorp and Lucas Stoltz completing the top 10. So these guys will be starting in these positions for the races later on. Ibrahim 11th, 12th and 13th for Montemini. Then we've got Basseng and Latif in 14th place. Ortelli and Hamprecht will start 15th. Jaeger and Baumann 16th. And then it'll be René Munich who will line up at the back of the grid in the All-Inkle Mercedes. And well, it looks as though Aman Ibrahim has made it through to the top 10 shootout, because just in that lower reaches of the top 10, I think we must have had one of the cars not setting a lap time quick enough to see them through into the top 10. So that's interesting. We'll keep an eye out for Ibrahim there in the 63 car, who will be going out into the pole position shootout. And there's Zanardi, a good strong return for Alex Zanardi, 6th and 7th for the two Royal BMWs, whereas the Brazilian BMWs are well down in 17th and 20th places. And look at that, a bit of frustration, but good work from Fuminelli. The Silver Cup pairing have looked strong, but as ever, Jeroen Bleekemolen, his first visit to the track, and he's second quickest.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all by that. Jeroen Bleekemolen is one of the stars in any race series that he competes in, and certainly he's adapted the Grasser Racing team, that Lamborghini with Harry Project, into a winning machine, as we see replay of what happened down at turn 6, and there you are, spin the wheels and you're going nowhere.
Yep, and that was Stefan Ortelli, and I think that's the reason that the 63 car of Ibrahim will be through, because Ortelli, that car would have qualified, but it didn't manage to make it through. There you can see the runoff on the exit of turn 2. The cars really throw themselves down into turn 3 there. Great hairpin, and then this was Latif, just ran out of road.
Ran out of confidence in the car, I would say, and that's, I think, the fundamental problem that we've seen with the other two Audis. Again, the bottom of the car is beached, the wheels are just spinning, and Stefan Ortelli, I think, just trying to explain what he felt was the problem. But it is, I've never seen a situation, one corner and a 15-minute session, 3 of the identical manufacturers' cars in that identical part of the racetrack.
No, absolutely, very curious indeed.
Alex Zanardi, you can see the steering, the ring behind the steering wheel which operates the throttle, and he's got brake, gear change and whatever else. An amazing spirit behind this man to be able to compete at the level he's doing. And just, I mean, it's unbelievable, frankly. I mean, racing cars, you can see on the steering wheel itself all the adjustments that are available, and then to have to do all the other functions as well.
He brakes with his prosthetic leg that he pretty much operates almost with his hip and his thigh, rather than the sort of leg itself. All the pressure has to come from the pivot of the hip.
Yeah, but the point is, you know, normally you have a lot of feel through your foot, your leg, up into the trunk of your body. He's got nothing, he's got prosthetics. So there is a totally different sense of what your foot feels. And I know as a racing driver, it was the feel that I got from the brake pedal that enabled me to be able to, you know, carry out certain functions, not simply just by braking into a corner, but to get a feel of the grip of the car. Also, if you're racing another car, how you use that brake pedal, you modulate it to give you the opportunity to pass another car under braking. So, quite remarkable.
So our 10-minute session, our 10-minute pole position shootout goes green here at the Slovakia ring. And first to head out onto the circuit is the Ferrari. Which, who must be heading back to the paddock because he hasn't made it through to the
he's taking
qualifying 3. Oh yeah, there's still a red light out there. So the green has come on the timing screens and the session has started counting down, but the session hasn't actually begun yet by the looks of things. They were just releasing that Ferrari, who must have got a bit confused or something. But we'll hopefully the session will be getting underway properly in a few moments' time, and we'll have a 10-minute pole position shootout, and it's going to be very tight, I think, this session. Winkelhock, Bleekemolen, Van Thor. It's going to be Audis versus Lamborghinis, isn't it? Really, with Mercedes, I think, a sort of close third.
Essentially, I mean, it's going to be this battle between Bleekemolen and René Rast, I would imagine. Lawrence Van Thor as well, the two Audi stars. And then, of course, don't forget about Thomas Enge, who is always capable of putting a car onto the front row of the grid, pole position. So the two Audis and the two Lamborghinis would be my choice to dominate the front row of the grid.
There's Gottfried Grasser, the team manager of Grasser Racing. What a wonderful season he has had so far. 30 seconds until Q3 starts. The Ferrari has just come back into the pit lane, so they've got all whatever that was about sorted. And any moment now, it'll be the 88 car, which will be in the hands, as you say, of Thomas Enge, who will leave the pits first in about 5 seconds' time. And the third segment of qualifying here at the Slovakia ring gets going.
Track is green.
Down.
Competitive Lamborghinis, first and second out. Grasser Racing first, the Reiter engineering car of Thomas Enge is second in line. So this is the Enge car, so it's the Grasser Racing one is the second in line, and undoubtedly that will be Jerome Bleekemolen. But Thomas Enge, clear track, only 10 cars will be in this session, so again, freshest if not a new set of tyres. You've got one lap to get the peak of the tyre performance, and with a clear track, that's what Thomas Enge is going to try and do.
Down through the hairpin of 3. I say hairpin, it's a almost never-ending right-hander that goes on and then sends them out through the left-hander of 4, and then the double right of 5 and 6. 5 is a bit of a kink, and then 6 is where it really gets tricky, more so this year than any other year by the looks of things so far.
No, it's the setup of the Audis.
Yeah,
it's not, nobody else has had a problem there. It's whatever way Audi have set their car up, it's causing, I think, rear end instability. I keep banging on about it, but that's what I believe it is.
So Enge just cruising around. Lawrence Van Thor has now left the pits as well. With it being such a long lap here, you sort of need to get on with things. You can't afford to wait too long if it's a Brands Hatch where lap times are sort of a minute 30, something like that. So you've got just a little bit more time to play with, whereas here, by the time you've done your outlap, you're 2.5 minutes into the session.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you are using a fresh set of rubber, which is probably what teams will want to do to get the best grid position, then you want to maintain your tyre temperature all the way through this. It's a long lap. You want to maintain your tyre temperature. That when you come through turn 13, this double right-hander, that then ultimately leads into 14, which does nothing other than just change direction on the racetrack. So now, cross start finish line, your tyres are at operating temperature. You've got this long run down into turn 1, coming from right across to left. So wide, really, it's not hypercritical, but the key is to get a good entry in, get the balance of the car so as you can get hard on the throttle as early as possible to get the run up over the first of the tunnels, but then you drop down, and if you're committed and brave, you're flat out through turn 2, and that's quick.
Yeah, a really quick corner, turn 2. Enge negotiates it nicely, but not so much the story for your own Bleekemolen, who has gone off the circuit at turn 1. So your own Bleekemolen pushing hard right from the get-go. And here's a look at it, John.
Yeah, I mean, just really catch the point where he's gone off racetrack. Now that is, we didn't quite see what happened, but certainly very much an indication as what we've seen from the Audis in the previous 2 sessions that just made a mistake on the entry, just maybe had the car a little bit too critical on that initial turn in, and again the back end gets away. And fortunately here in Slovakia ring, there is a lot of runoff. It is gravel, it's not been tarmacked over, I'm delighted to say. So back to Thomas Enger in the Reiter Engineering Lamborghini, fastest through first sector, fastest of all so far today, 38.261.
Yep, Enger coming now through the left-hander, but that's not a particularly quick first sector, I don't think, from Enger. It's quickest of anyone so far in this session, because he's the first man out there, but also that middle sector isn't quick either. We've seen sub 1 minute middle sectors, so Enger perhaps just getting the tyres sort of bedded in before then going for it on his second flying lap. Laurens Vanthoor has done a 36.177 in sector 1. That's more like it.
That's indeed, that's over 2 seconds quicker than we've seen Thomas Enger on this current lap. So this is the beginning of the flying lap for Thomas Enger, 2:04. So as well observed, Jack, it was not a particularly quick lap. So now Enger, having gained confidence, knows what the car's going to do, tyres up to temperature, can push hard, runs wide, just drops the left side of the car off the curb. But because it is tarmac, that little bit of additional tarmac doesn't cause any issues or problems for the Czech driver.
Meanwhile, here's Laurens Vanthoor coming over the crest of the hill, almost getting onto the grass as he comes under braking for the left-hander of turn 10. He then loops back around on himself for turn 11, and 12 then spits him out onto the long back straight. And we'll get a middle sector time of 57.546. That's a pretty good middle sector for Laurens Vanthoor. This could be a good time. I think pole position is going to be low 58.
It just depends whether the Royal Racing BMW comes into play, whether there's an effect, an aerodynamic effect from the rear of the BMW. Hopefully not. Laurens Vanthoor is going to come across start-finish line. He's going to go quickest by a substantial margin, 58.1. So not as quick as we saw in that second session, but certainly a good effort.
No, that's the quickest time we've seen all weekend, I think, a 58.1. It was a 58.7, wasn't it, in that second qualifying session. So a mega lap from Laurens Vanthoor, 1 minute 58.187. He has thrown down the gauntlet. Jeroen Bleekemolen's responding to it.
He has 36.151. So the Lamborghini, having made that error in turn 1 a moment or two earlier with 4 minutes of the session remaining. So Jeroen Bleekemolen is 84 has gone
second quickest for Max Goetz.
So Mercedes suddenly leaping up into the action. Great to see.
And here comes Vinky now down towards the penultimate corner. That's what they call him. They call him something else as well, but I can't really repeat that on air. But as they come through the right-hander now in the number 6 Phoenix Audi, Winkelhocker's had an okay, a pretty decent first sector. Middle sector's not been superb. Somewhere in the 58s probably, across the line, 58.873, slightly slower than he managed, but here now is Jeroen Bleekemolen. What's he done in that middle sector? A 57.9, about 4/10 slower than Laurens Vanthoor. So I don't know if this is going to be quick enough to usurp Vanthoor on provisional pole position at the moment. No, it's not. 0.2 of a second slower.
So Audi and Lamborghini front row provisionally. We've got 3 minutes remaining.
Stef Dusseldorp has just done the fastest first sector of anyone in the HTP Mercedes. Good lap from the Dutchman, who had an excellent qualifying performance at Spa, starting near the front in the 24 hours endurance race there. But we're now watching the 34 car in the hands of David Fuminelli. Behind him is Alex Zanardi. The Zanardi's on a much slower lap than Fuminelli, but here comes Fuminelli. This will be somewhere maybe in the 59s as he comes towards the line.
5th quickest for the BMW. The sister car comes across behind. Whereas Zanardi, he was currently in 9th place, and
he stays in 9th.
Stays 9th. And René Rast on track for the first time.
There he is, the German who was so impressive. Well, as we've already said, at Spa, but also preceding that at Zandvoort. This isn't going to be a mega fast time, but it's going to be decent enough to put him up there. 4th place at the moment for René Rast, but that was his first timed lap, so will he get quicker on the second one? What's Dusseldorp done in the middle sector?
Nothing.
58.7, and he is a good second down in that middle sector. So let's see what he's got as he comes across the line.
No, he doesn't improve. He stays ninth. That's disappointing. Fastest overall first sector, and then the 2 remaining sectors he wasn't able to consolidate that.
Jeroen Bleekemolen's done his personal best in Sector 1. He's got 0.2 of a second to find to Laurens van Thor behind him. There doing a 59.2 is Thomas Enger in the Reiter Engineering Lamborghini as he comes across the line. 1.5 minutes to go, so Enger will get another lap in.
Disappointing that last lap, but you say 1 lap remaining as we go back to the Lamborghini, and Bleekemolen.
A poor middle sector.
Yes, middle sector's lost some time, so there's little he can do in this final sector. Pretty much combines that long bit of section from turn 11 all the way down to 13, and you can't make up time there. It's all being won and lost essentially in the middle sector.
So, is there enough life in the tyre for Jeroen Bleekemolen to get 1 more lap out of this? He hammers on the brakes as he comes down towards turn 1, uses all the road, very neat and tidy through the first corner now, up over the hill towards turn 2 as the BMW mechanics clutch their laptops and Gottfried Grasser makes some notes.
Car I'm going to keep an eye on is René Rast, currently 4th place, personal best first sector. So no purple for René Rast, but a purple has gone for Bleekemolen on his final lap. So fastest in first sector.
There is still life in the tyres at the moment. Then Jeroen Bleekemolen looking very, very quick. We're watching the 84 car of Max Kurtz, who's currently 5th quickest. He's done a personal best in the first sector. His middle sector isn't superb. That seems to be where the Mercedes are losing out. The middle sector here is 1 minute long. There's an awful lot of time to be lost there. But Goetz, I think if he can qualify in the top 5, he'll be reasonably happy. I don't know if Zanardi's run into trouble because he's down in 10th place and not being particularly competitive. Goetz decides that is that, and he comes into the pits. So Jeroen Bleekemolen is the man out there on the circuit. He's going to be the only man who can stop Laurens van Thor taking another pole position for WRT Audi. Van Thor took pole at Spa with a wonderful lap. Can he repeat it here at the Slovakia ring with an equally impressive time? Grasser getting a little nervy down there. Here comes the middle sector split. What are we looking for? Is somewhere in the 57s, 58.1. That is...
It's 0.6 away from the best, the best so far. So it's not going to challenge the provisional pole position, which is now going to be almost a given that Laurens van Thor will take that honour.
Through the final corner comes Jeroen Bleekemolen. He'll keep pushing. He might be able to gain a couple of tenths here and there, but across the line comes Bleekemolen. Can he stop Van Thor from taking pole? No, he can't. He did a personal best in the final sector. He closed in a bit.
Best overall.
Best overall in the final sector. If he hadn't lost those 2 tenths in the middle sector, he'd be on pole position, but ifs and buts and whatevers, it's Laurens van Thor who will surely be on pole position. We've still got Alex Zanardi out there. He's done a reasonable first sector. Let's see his middle sector. He's 1.8 seconds down. So Zanardi really not getting it together in this final Q3 session. His teammate David Fuminelli is 0.9 of a second quicker so far, so not quite working out for Zanardi.
I think it's an impressive run from Jeroen Bleekemolen at the end of 10 minutes on a set of tyres that was done the best part of 5 laps in total.
And a trip through the gravel.
Trip through the gravel, as you point out. I'm sure he wants to be reminded of that. But in that final sector, again indicating it's the middle of this racetrack that is determining ultimately the pace. Laurens van Thor did that time early in the session, got the best overall time in that middle sector in a car that we've seen from 3 other Audi drivers is very, very tricky to drive. If you get it right, the time is there, but if you get it wrong, it'll fall off the circuit on you.
That'll be very interesting to see how well it can perform when it gets to the race, whether that'll be very challenging for the drivers to deal with on a longer stint. René Rast comes into the pits, only 4th quickest for him, 0.7 of a second slower than Laurens van Thor, and there is Jeroen Bleekemolen, so he finished 0.142 behind Van Thor after a slow middle sector. The best of anyone in sectors 1 and 2, so I think we're in for a very tight race later on. So this is how the grid will line up. Pole position will be the number 1 defending champion Laurens van Thor and his teammate Cesar Ramos. Alongside them on the front row of the grid will be the Lamborghini. Look at that, 3 Audis in the top 4, and Bleekemolen in the Lamborghini, the only intruder in the Gottfried Grasser Racing Lamborghini. And here's a look back at the highlights of that very entertaining qualifying session. very, very tight. And in fact, the top 8 cars covered by a second. After that third segment of qualifying, David Fuminelli was impressive. And in fact, he has been impressive in Q3 as well, to start 6th on the grid, Fuminelli. And also a good performance from Lucas Stoltz, up in 7th place, but the two BMW Team Brazil cars looked great, but they weren't particularly quick, unfortunately. Mateusz Lizowski headed into the gravel trap and got himself beached in the sand, and Stefan Otelli had a lot of spins on his way in there. The other guys we've seen have just sort of run wide, but Otelli properly rotated. There's the two Grasser Racing Lamborghinis. Fabio Nidi was pushing hard in the Bitec McLaren, whilst Dominic Baumann had to make his way past some traffic. And then Alessandro Latif, running out of room, running out of road, running out of grip, running out of confidence, whatever he was running out of.
Not talent.
No, I didn't say talent. He ends up in the gravel trap, unfortunately. And there's Stefan Otelli trying to explain what happened to the marshals. Zanardi was ready to go. Jeroen Bleekemolen on his first flying lap ended up in the gravel trap, and if he hadn't have had that mistake, perhaps we would have seen a quicker lap from Bleekemolen. But it was the number 1 car of Laurens Vanthoor and Cesar Ramos who took pole position. Bleekemolen pushed as hard as he could, didn't quite get it hooked up in the middle sector on his final lap. I'm sure Gottfried Grasser noted that down, but it was Laurens Vanthoor who took pole position.